What's up, everybody? Che here, No Spoon Podcast. Just want to shout out everybody that has been following for a minute. Shout out all the curse breakers out there, all the people that is breaking curses, and those that are part of my curse breaker training team. We're doing a whole lot, getting things done. If you want to contribute to that, I'm gonna put a link probably in this description. If not, go to my IG. You can see the link there. There's a Give Send Go page. You can even put in Curse Breakers Training in the Give Send Go page, and it'll come up if you want to contribute to the cause. Um, People trying to break curses, generational curses through physical fitness, proper health and nutrition, and just getting ourselves right mentally, physically, and spiritually. I wanted to talk a little bit real quick about these tweets that I saw. These tweets are actually from like a couple weeks ago, but I just hadn't had time to really build on them, and I think that they're really telling of where we're at in society, and you can see how things have changed so much, and probably not for the better. And in my opinion, not for the better. That's why I'm going to talk about it right here. But these tweets revolve around Marc Lamont Hill. Marc Lamont Hill is a professor. I believe he was at Temple. He is he's a left wing activist, academic scholar, so on and so forth. And in these tweets, he's going back and forth with certain different people. But I just want to pull him up real quick and let you see him. Now, this young lady that you see on the screen right here, she is she was an actress on a show. I believe she was on the show with LL Cool J. I can't really remember the name of it. But anyways, you see this individual said in response to her, she said, "She was my chocolate dream when I was a kid. I hate that her demons are winning right now." So I think he's alluding to the fact that she's having some mental health issues going on. And so Marc Lamont Hill, he quote tweeted it, and he said mental health issues are not, quote, demons. She needs medical support and care. Somebody replied to that and said, "My demons, quote unquote, is a figure of speech." And then Hill says, "Yes, a figure of speech that generally refers to things we can control and to which we assign negative value. I'm saying that we need to reassess how we discuss mental illness." Another response says, "Chill out, quite a commonly used term when you don't have a diagnosis." Lamont Hill says she does have a diagnosis, and while quote commonly used, it's still an unhelpful and dangerous way to discuss mental illness. Let me show you one more comment and one more response from him. It says, "I don't think he meant literal demons. Isn't that just an expression that refers to inner conflict?" Lamont Hill says, "I understand, and that's the wrong way to characterize it. Would you say someone with cancer, HIV, or a heart condition was, quote unquote, wrestling with demons?" Now, there's two things about these tweets that stand out, right? First, he's talking about calling mental illness demons, right? Um, as we know, like medical science has come a long way, and now we don't. Some of the things that we didn't know a long time ago, we now know. So if you look like even the Bible, you would see people were possessed by demons, had demon possessions, and that's generally what they refer to people who had what we would call mental health or mental illness today as being possessed by demons. There was exorcisms; they would take them to priests and have the prayed over them so that the demons would come out. Um, and he's saying, we now know diagnosis for this. We've had, you know, studies done to where we can see that this is not a demon. This is a illness, a diagnosed illness such as schizophrenia, such as depression, such as anxiety, so on and so forth, bipolar, whatever. So, he's making that argument there, and that's the argument that a lot of doctors and medical scientists and academia that they push is that these are actual illnesses and diseases and things that need to be treated as such. The other part is the part where he says, he kind of relates mental health issues to medical issues, physical issues such as cancer, HIV, heart disease. He says that you wouldn't call somebody that had those ailments wrestling with demons. So again, he's equating, let's say, depression or anxiety and schizophrenia with heart disease or cancer, right? And he's saying like He also says that has one tweet where he says that it refers, if we're talking about wrestling with demons, it refers to things that we can control. I think the problem here is that the way that we see mental health in the United States is exactly how Marc Lamont Hill says it. These are things that you can catch. It's almost as if we're implying that they're random. As random as, let's say, I go to the grocery store, I'm standing in line to pay for my groceries, and the person in front of me has a cold or has the flu, and they start coughing. It's saying that these are things that you can catch, right? If he's saying that it's not her fault that she's having mental health issues, then it's the fault of something else outside of her, right? That he specifically makes that reference and saying that you're referring as if something you can control. And I think that that's the biggest problem when it comes to mental health, is that we think that it's something that we can't control, as if we can catch depression, as if we can catch anxiety, as if we can catch all the various problems that people suffer from a mental health perspective. And I think that that's wrong. That's erroneous. You can control it. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say. Well, we don't want to believe that. We want to believe that these things are happening to us are outside of our control, but that's simply not true. The reality is we can control these things. We can control how we think and how our thought process is. Now, when we look at mental health issues, we look at them and we have to acknowledge that they are a product of a traumatic event. So let's say, for example, depression. Let's take that because that's one of the most common things. People suffer from it all the time. And let me clarify something, because I've said in the past, and I say this all the time, that I believe that depression isn't real. And what I mean by that is not that people aren't depressed. I believe it's not real in the sense of it's random, spontaneous. I think it's completely and 100% within your control. Now, what's not in your control is sometimes the traumatic stuff that happens to you. You can lose a loved one. You can be abused. You can witness things that are grotesque and traumatic, so to speak. And those are traumas. You can't do anything about that. Some people's trauma is worse than others. But all the time, trauma is subjective. That means it's it's some people's traumatic experiences are worse than others. They internalize it worse than others. A lot of the trauma that we deal with happens when we're children, and the reason that we get traumatized by things when we're children is because we have not developed enough to rationalize situations. I'll give you an example. Right now, as a grown man, if I walk down the street and I seen a stray dog and I tried to pet it and the dog tried to bite me, I probably wouldn't be traumatized to the point where I would stay away from all dogs for the rest of my life. I would be able to rationalize that and say, well, I probably shouldn't go and pet a stray dog that I don't know whether they're trained. I don't know anything about it. I shouldn't do that, right? It also depends on the breed of the dog, right? So I can rationalize myself through that. Now, if I was 4 or 5 and came across a dog or whatnot, and a dog bit me, I might be traumatized for the rest of my life when it comes to other dogs. I probably wouldn't want to be a dog. There's plenty of kids that are scared of dogs, right? Any dog, it doesn't matter, because they have not had the life experience or the ability and developed enough to rationalize their position and why that happened to them. So that's why we have so much trauma coming back from our childhood, because at the time we do not understand the things that happened to us, right? So the thing about it is that eventually you have to grow up. You have to be able to rationalize things. You have to be able to look at things from a rational perspective. A lot of times people have dealt with very traumatic abuse and neglect and things like that when they're kids. Yes, it is difficult to overcome. Nobody is saying, oh, you should just snap out of it. It's going to take time. However, I feel like the overall narrative when it comes to mental health is that you cannot overcome it. It's almost like it's a permanent state, as if you were born with some mental deficiency. And the reality is that's just not true. We have traumatic things happen to us, and then we choose on how we respond to it. A lot of times there are people that don't have the proper tools, the proper training, the proper being raised in the proper manner to learn how to overcome it. And then what happens is that society, especially as driven by the big pharmaceutical companies, healthcare providers, academia, uh, and so on and so forth, they have an incentive in keeping you in that same state, right? They don't want you to know that you can overcome your mental health issues because they would rather diagnose you and then prescribe you a medication that you have to be on for the rest of your life, and that puts money in their pockets. They don't want you to overcome it. Remember, that's the main thing here. They're not going to want you to overcome it. The reality is you can overcome your mental health issues. If you look at yourself, right? You look at things that happen to you and you look at traumatic experiences and then you say, what did I do in response to that? Even if we take some to the extreme of like, let's say schizophrenia, right? We look here like in Los Angeles, there's a big homeless problem. Everybody like, we have a homeless problem. And then people will say, no, we don't have a homeless problem. We have a mental health problem. And to that I say, then we have a drug problem. Because if you look at a lot of the people that are running around on the streets yelling, hearing voices, saying things, that didn't just happen to them. There was one key step that took place that led to that. And a lot of it is the introduction of drugs, especially drugs like crystal methamphetamine. When you stay up for 10, 12, 15 days, you don't want to eat, you're malnutrition, your brain is not being given the proper nutrients to be able to function properly. So you start to hallucinate. You start to hear voices. You start to see things that aren't there. And then once you get off the drugs, it doesn't stop. You remain on it because your brain has already been so fried from the drugs that now you have schizophrenia. But the reality is that you made a decision to get to that point. See, that's the thing. Even depression. I'm going to give you an example, a personal example, right? Back in 2020, I lost my grandmother. And me and my grandmother were really close. She helped raise me. And it was hard. It was hard like anything else when you lose somebody that close to you. There was a lot of pain and a lot of grieving and a lot of sorrow, right? But there was an added component is my grandmother had dementia. So as, you know, and I was only home with her for the last 2 years because I was in prison. So there was a lot of guilt that I felt of not being having that time with her. I lost 15 years that I could have had with her, and by the time I seen her, she had already started down the path of dementia to where it was getting difficult for her to even recognize me. And so there was a lot of guilt and all that came from that. Um, and so I remember after she passed away, and this is COVID was going on, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things going on in the world that I kind of felt myself drifting, not really having a goal, not really having purpose, just kind of going through life and not really having no direction. And then you start to, you know, at the time, I still used to drink, I still used to smoke weed. Um, so I was doing a lot of that just to kind of numb the pain. Again, things that we do to kind of numb ourselves from the reality of the situation. Uh, and I started to feel myself being more sad, being, you know, feeling sorry for myself. I made a playlist of songs that kind of made me feel sad, that put me in that mind state to kind of feel sad, still feel sorry for myself. That's reality. You know, a lot of us, we do that. We think, oh, I'm just going to remember my grandma, and now you're sad and you're depressed, and now you're feeling sorrow and all these type of things. So fast forward, so I had to snap out of that and kind of get my life back on track. It wasn't major. It wasn't nothing deep. I wasn't going to no psychiatrist, but I just noticed that change within myself, right? Fast forwarded to last year, my grandfather passed away, and again, same situation. Me and him was real close, and I didn't have the same amount of guilt because at this time I'd already been going to church. My faith was kind of being reestablished, or had been reestablished. I stopped the smoking, stopped the drinking, stopped all that type of stuff. I found more purpose in my life. I've been working with the program that I've been working with for a minute. I'm married, so I wasn't married when my grandmother passed away. I'm married now. Uh, there was more purpose, more things to live for, right? And not saying that I didn't want to live for that, but I'm just saying I had more purpose now. I wasn't drowning in substances to try to take away any type of pain. And I made a conscious decision. I remember the day that he passed away. He passed away during the middle of the night, and I woke up to the message of, you know, my grandfather passing away. And of course I was sad, and of course there was grieving. But I was like, I'm gonna go to the gym, and I went to the gym right after I heard the news. I still went to the gym, worked out, and I told myself, don't go down that path. Don't start feeling sorry for yourself. Don't start sitting there getting caught up in this too much reminiscing and all that type of stuff. Don't get caught up in that. And it was a choice. See, we had a choice. We're all of us are going to lose family and lose loved ones. All of us are going to face some type of adversity. All of us are going to face trauma. Some people's trauma is going to be worse than others. But we all have a choice on how we respond. Now, going back to the spiritual aspect, when we talked about demons, I'll say this. I think it's very dangerous that we don't acknowledge that these are spiritual problems. And now that we've completely eradicated anybody having kind of demons or it being in a spiritual nature, that we ignore that, and now we're being attacked by it. See, because one thing about spiritual warfare and one thing about evil is going to attack the most vulnerable people. Evil is always going to come at those people that are weakest, and the weakest people are the ones that are dealing with trauma. When you're dealing with trauma, you are weak, you are vulnerable. They will take advantage of you. Evil will get in your ear and whisper and say, you should be sad, you should be grieving, you should smoke weed, you should drink, you should do these type of things to numb the pain. You're going through something. You deserve to grieve. Listen to those songs. Get into a state of mind where you're sad. It's okay, and you stay there and you stay there and you don't get out. See, you are wrestling with demons. Mental health and mental illness is a demonic thing. Just like everything that happens to human beings that takes them off their path and their purpose towards God is demonic. And for us not to acknowledge that is very dangerous, because we take away the spiritual aspect. And all we're doing is giving ourselves and our minds to the doctors and the scientists and the people that have an interest in profiting off of your misery. You can make a choice. Anything. Your kids, my kids have bipolar. But most of you feed your kids sugar, and the sugar takes them on a sugar high and then crashes, and the sugar high and then crashes. And again, they're not developed enough to be able to understand what's going on with them emotionally, that they're up and down, up and down. You take them to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist says, oh, they're bipolar because they have mood disorders, so give them some medication. My kid has ADHD. They can't focus because they're on sugar. They got the phone in front of them. They're constantly swiping and constantly scrolling. They looking for the next thing, and that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You sit on social media and do the same thing. That's boring. Swipe. That's boring. Scroll. You're searching for dopamine, and you're teaching your kids to do that at such a young age. And that what happens is then they go to the doctor, and you go to a psychiatrist, and you say, hey, he can't sit and focus and do his work. He has ADHD. Here's a prescription. The reality is that we are all going to face adversity. We are all going to face trauma. How we respond to it is the difference. You can respond positively and say, okay, that happened. There's nothing I can do about it. I need to get back on my feet and move on, no matter how difficult it is. Or you can wallow in the lies of evil. When evil comes and tells you to lay down, there's nothing you can do about it. You are helpless. Those are lies. And that's evil. So if you really want to get help, if you really want to overcome it, understand that concept. It is within your control. And until we get back to that, then we are going to continuously have this narrative that things are happening to us and we're helpless and mindless and numb slaves. That's it. That's all I got for today. My name is Shay for the No Spoon Podcast. Remember, if you want to contribute to the Curse Breakers training, man, go ahead and hit that link in the bio. Go to Give, Send, Go, Curse Breakers training. Donate right there. We're doing some great things. And keep breaking curses. Keep breaking curses. Shay, I'm out.